Welcome to an excerpt of Cauldron of Terror, Gaza, Hamas, Israel and the World, written by Mark Silinsky and published by Pen and Sword. This book will be available for purchase in spring 2026. This is presented by Kensington Security Consulting, which brings education to national security. This is the second excerpt from Chapter 2. It is about the mindset and aspirations of Hamas. It examines how its authoritarian principles parallel those of Western philosophies. Of all the unanswered questions of our time, perhaps the most important is, what is fascism? George Orwell. What is fascism? 1944. Many Western observers find it challenging to define Hamas's politics, which blend radical Islam with authoritarian and occasionally secular principles. Some ideas are grounded in Sharia, while others unsettlingly echo the authoritarian ideologies of fascism and National Socialism from the 20th century. Giovanni Gentile, an Italian professor, shaped fascism during World War I under the slogan, "All within the state, none outside the state, none against the state." The first fascist movement to rise to power was Mussolini's blackshirts in Italy in 1922. The term became widely associated with numerous anti-democratic political philosophies of that era. During World War II, the Soviet Union referred to the German military and political systems as fascist enterprises. Hitler respected fascism but constructed National Socialism as a distinct, though related, ideology. Many Islamic intellectuals from the Middle East were drawn to both fascism and National Socialism. Hamas's political philosophy has its roots in the Islamic Brotherhood, as outlined in its charter. It also integrates elements of 20th century European political systems, particularly fascism and National Socialism. In this sense, Hamas's politics bear a close resemblance to those of the Islamic State in Syria and the Sham, or ISIS, as well as other Islamist organizations. British historian Melissa Ruthven characterized the authoritarian Muslim governments in the Middle East as being influenced by Islamo-fascism. This term refers to the combination of Islamic and heavily secular authoritarian principles. Both fascism and Islamism are characterized by state control over politics and society, a concept deeply embedded in Hamas's charter. Fascism with an Islamic face. We love Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was an Arab. Eva Braun is also our cousin. Shouts of young males at a rally in Germany, 2017. Islamo-fascism describes a blend of radical Islam and militant authoritarianism. The terms Islamo-fascism and Islamo-Nazism were rarely used until the early 21st century. After the September 2001 attacks in the United States, observers struggled to find suitable words to describe the politics of militant Islamic radicals. Some believed that the term Islamo-fascism was fitting. Then President Bush compared Islamism to fascism, and the top U.S. Army official in the Middle East, General John Abizaid, drew parallels between the rise of Islamist ideologies and the emergence of fascism in Europe during the 1920s and 1930s. Military historian Victor Davis Hanson emphasized the themes of enforced conformity and submission found in both Islamism and fascism. President Bush called al-Qaeda Islamo-fascistic, saying the group's attacks served as a stark reminder that this nation is at war with Islamic fascists. He also claimed that Islamo-fascism is a murderous ideology, the great challenge of our new century. Columbia University professor Robert Paxton emphasizes that fascism's core includes group identity, superiority, and victimization, which are deeply rooted in Hamas's ideology. Elements of the sacred teachings of Islam declare that Muslims are superior to all other groups of men and women and should have greater rights in an Islamic state. There is also a strong sense of victimhood in the Middle East, where Islamic clergy and intellectuals blame Western colonialism for the region's poverty. Hamas, along with other Palestinian groups, has adopted a culture of grievance, fascism, and Hamas. At least 9 themes are shared between the philosophies of fascism and Hamas. These themes include collective identity, the principle of leadership, martial pageantry, mythical atavism and purity, utopian aspirations, severely restricted human rights, hypermasculinity, martyrdom, and a relentless struggle against a primary enemy. First, there is the idea of collective identity. In fascist states, a strong sense of unity prevails, with individuals absorbed into the collective. In Germany and Japan, this collective identity was racially homogeneous and deeply rooted in an exclusive, often romanticized history and culture. Unlike National Socialist ideology, Italian and Spanish fascism did not focus on racial theory. In Islam, this collective is called the Ummah. For Hamas, as with European fascist leaders, the individual has little value. Hamas treats Gazans as tools in the war with Israel, positioning them in apartments, hospitals and mosques that also serve as fire bases. Hamas has buried caches of arms and explosives under kindergartens, schools, hospitals and playgrounds. This ensures that non-combatants will be killed. Using Gazans as fodder is part of Hamas's information operations because pictures of dead children portray Israel as a baby killer. As for the Muslims who die because of Hamas's grand strategy, they become martyrs. Their families receive status and financial benefits from Hamas and Fatah. The martyrs are guaranteed a place in heaven. The second common element of Islamism and fascism is the principle of leadership. The leader holds dictatorial or near-dictatorial power, ruling absolutely either by divine right, as in Japan, or through a popular mandate, as in Germany, Italy, and Spain. In Sunni Islam, there is often no clear or established succession process. Traditionally, leaders are appointed by senior clerical figures, whereas in Iran, leadership is held by senior clerics. Third, there is martial pageantry, which is an intense celebration of warrior culture. Many countries honor their military and veterans through monuments, songs, sagas, and holidays. During surges of patriotism, especially in times of war, democratic states accord their militaries due respect. However, the martial pageantry in Mussolini's Italy, Hitler's Germany, and Hirohito's Japan idolizes militarism. The fighting culture of Hamas takes this further, creating a death cult. Hamas uses visual art to glorify militarism and martyrdom. Graffiti and traditional art encourage assaults on Israel. Former leaders Ibrahim al-Muqaddam and Abdelaziz al-Rantisi wrote poetry about the martial struggle. Others followed, documenting imprisonment, martyrdom, suffering, and warfare. Occasionally, Hamas's ideology is closely linked to sports organizations, with mosques forming soccer teams. One team's motto was, "Prepare for the enemy and fight the occupation." This message is reinforced in Hamas's schools, where kindergartners wear uniforms and carry toy rifles. The fourth common element between Hamas's philosophy and fascism is racial or religious atavism. Many authoritarian philosophies of the 20th century draw inspiration from an ancient and idealized period of purity. Rousseau laid the groundwork for communism by imagining a future without private property. National Socialism aimed to recreate a racially pure past by eliminating racial contamination. while Italian fascists reminisced about the glory and grandeur of Rome. Similarly, Hamas strives to emulate a golden age represented by the first generation of Muslims, which Hamas highlights as a model of purity. The fifth common thread is utopian aspirations, which are not exclusive to fascist or Islamic societies. Medieval Europeans believed that they would attain a celestial paradise by living piously. The significance of the afterlife waned with the scientific revolution in the 18th century. Still, some 20th century authoritarian philosophies embraced utopian visions that gained popularity. Nazis envisioned a purely Aryan Germany ruling over non-Aryan serfs, while communists imagined a future without economic classes. Fascists generally envisioned a muscular utopia where they held uncontested power. For Hamas, the ideal governance model was based on the first generation of Muslims. Their utopia aims to recreate this embellished past. The sixth element involves significantly restricted individual rights. Western nations limit government interference in citizens' religious practices, employment choices, marriages, and their ability to express political dissent. In contrast, authoritarian regimes provide far fewer liberal rights. In Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, and Fascist Italy, leaders imprisoned or executed those who opposed their often absolute authoritarian rule. Hamas similarly governs under the strictest interpretation of Islamic law, alongside elements of secular law. Women are required to cover themselves or risk being beaten or stoned. The police in Gaza beat and imprison women who advocate for other women and enforce gender segregation. Hamas operatives kill fellow Muslims whom they suspect of collaborating with the Israeli enemy. There is little refuge in Gaza for LGBTQ individuals who face severe persecution and ostracism. Hamas routinely tortures Gazans believed to be gay. Hypermasculinity is the seventh common trait. In both Islamism and fascism, strong and clear gender roles are stressed. Women are primarily responsible for bearing and raising children. Men are expected to provide financial support, protect their families, and serve as warriors when needed. The visual and musical arts emphasize the muscular warrior class. In many cultures, masculinity is glorified, but hypermasculinity represents an extreme martial ideal. The eighth element is the focus on the heroic or martyrdom aspect, sometimes associated with hypermasculinity. Most civilizations celebrate their heroes in national narratives, honoring those who die in battle within their culture. In non-fascist societies, civilians generally see death in combat as an unfortunate necessity that must be faced with dignity. However, death in battle has a different meaning in Hamas culture. Martyrdom is revered as the highest expression of Islamic devotion. Muslims who die fighting against non-Muslims are called shaheeds. The Quran assures that the shaheed will be granted immediate entry into heaven. For Hamas and other Palestinians, the most revered shaheed before Israel's establishment was Sheikh Izz al-Din Ezzeddin Qassam, a Syrian who was killed in 1948 during the Arab-Israeli conflict. The Qassam Brigade is named after him. One of the most celebrated events in Palestinian folklore is the Great Revolt of 1936 to 1939, which was suppressed by the British and Jews. Despite this, many Palestinians see this event as the start of their armed struggle and honor the Arabs who died during the revolt as martyrs and heroes. The ninth characteristic shared by modern authoritarian ideologies is a constant struggle against a specified enemy. For the Nazis, the eternal main enemy was the international Jew. For Stalin-era Soviets, it was either capitalism or counter-revolution. For Hamas, it is also the international Jew. The 1988 Hamas Charter refers to Jews, not Israelis, with murderous contempt and a desire for destruction. The Charter's revision in 2017 downplays the deadly hatred toward Jews as a group, but states that Zionism remains its unwavering enemy. However, many statements fail to distinguish between Judaism and Zionism. This hatred erupted into butchery on October 7, 2023, and it continues. This concludes one of several readings from Chapter 2 from Cauldron of Terror Gaza, Hamas, Israel and the World, written by Mark Silinsky and published by Pen and Sword. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and give us a like. This book is available online or at major bookstores worldwide. This reading does not represent the official position of any agency or individual within the United States government. On behalf of Kensington Security Consulting, thank you for listening.